was miles out of my comfort zone as far as what I was used to and the environment that I was used to being in, and it was terrific. I was glad when it was over, but it was terrific.
In this episode of The Little Black Book, I'm joined by Daniel Bullock, who is the co-owner and managing director of Safeguard Insurance Brokers. Safeguard is a second-generation, family-owned business that has been providing insurance services to businesses since 1978. In this episode, you'll hear how a trip through Sumatra as a young man pushed Daniel out of his comfort zone and helped him create empathy for others and what they're experiencing, which he's transferred into his business life. How leaving a family business was traumatic and how important communication is inside families in business together to make sure relationships can continue and to mend. How a major workplace incident and trauma impacted Dan and created a real perspective on his life and his future and helped him to be grateful for all his experiences. The importance of family balance and being present at home and the routines that he goes through to switch off from work and to be present with his wife and kids when he gets home. And finally, how the changing face of insurance is impacted on businesses and business owners and how important it is to get their structures right to ensure that they're effectively protected. Welcome to The Little Black Book, a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs who provide their first-hand experiences to help others learn and grow. This podcast is brought to you by Altitude Advisory. Altitude Advisory is a modern business advisory firm helping business owners build a better business for a better life. Favourite movie of all time?
Favourite movie of all time for me would be Top Gun. I am very much a child of the 80s.
Yeah.
So Top Gun's the one that jumps to mind. Anything with Tom Cruise and particularly Top Gun jumps to mind.
Yeah.
Straight off the bat.
Top Gun, Days of Thunder, all in the same
Cocktail,
same era.
All that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So when Tom Cruise was big before he went crazy.
So that was a bit of a young idol or something like that, was it? Tom Cruise?
Yeah, well, I think he just did all the action movies. I think back then, so just was a rising star, wasn't he, or a big star?
Yeah. Through
that period, and that's a lot of the films that we got to see.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
What about a book, mate, that as a child or a young adult that had a real effect on you and why? Yeah,
I really enjoyed, and I still do enjoy reading. I don't get enough of it these days, but really enjoyed reading when I was younger. And I would have to say that the Michael J. Fox autobiography was the one that probably had the biggest effect on me. And that was to deal with, he was obviously a huge star when through the 80s again and early 90s, I suppose, and then got diagnosed with Parkinson's. So that was, to me, it was fascinating reading his sort of life story. He was only fairly young when they did that autobiography as well. And it was just fascinating reading how through his sort of early 20s and that sort of period when he was a rising star, he had everybody doing everything for him, didn't take any responsibility for his own life. And then when it all started to go pear-shaped, that was the learning that he had that came out of that, was that he had to actually take more responsibility for what was going on directly in his life rather than outsourcing everything.
Yeah, I suppose there's some great learnings in that you can transfer not just to your own day-to-day, but then also with kids and growing up and things like that as well, Dan.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's the one book and I've read a lot of books, but that's the one that had the biggest impression on me, I think.
Yeah.
That I can remember clearly.
Yeah, and I suppose with that as well, it's just about, I guess, perspective. It helps you put things in perspective. He's somebody with everything at their, seemingly at their feet, whether it be movies or TV or whatever, and like I said, an up-and-coming star, and then to be diagnosed with a crippling and serious long-term, illness, to see that, diminish or the impact they could have.
That's exactly right, and no one's infallible, are they? No one's untouchable as far as health goes. So you just got to live life and you've got to take responsibility for what goes on in your own life and the goals that you want.
Yeah, cool. I mean, some great lessons in that. I guess next thing, your most transformative travel experience that you've ever had, where was it? Why was it?
I've been lucky. We've managed to do a lot of travel.
Yeah.
So it's been terrific. But a lot of travel with the kids and Sally, my wife, and But the most transformative one I would say would be going back to the mid-90s. So again, sort of around those mid-20s for myself.
Yeah.
And I went over to Jakarta. We had a family member that had a business in Jakarta, and I was not doing much. So I went over there to have a look at that and do a bit of work over there. And I would have been in Jakarta for about 3 months. I could speak Indonesian at the time.
Yeah.
And didn't really like living in Jakarta, but came to the end of being there and had to, was actually going to catch up with my sister in Bali on the way home. She won a trip to Bali, and I had 2 weeks to fill. So I went on a bus trip through Sumatra, and which at that time it was an Indonesian speaking bus trip. So I was the only Australian, the only sort of English speaking person on the bus.
Yeah.
Everything was in Indonesian. So it was miles out of my comfort zone as far as what I was used to and the environment that I was used to being in. And it was terrific. I was glad when it was over, but it was terrific. We had the opportunity to either have a single room, or a shared room.
Yeah.
And opted for a shared room because it was cheaper.
Yeah.
And I can still vividly remember one night I spent along with 5 guys in a double bed.
Right.
With the lights on. So that was their version of a shared room. And the reason why they had the lights on was because a lot of them were spiritual and scared of ghosts. So they didn't like sleeping in the dark. So it was very, very different. Very different. But everywhere I went, people would stop and take photos of me and that sort of stuff. So it was incredible, really.
So you're a bit of a tourist attraction in your own right.
Exactly right.
Yeah. I guess taking that into career, that is stepping way out of your comfort zone. What have you taken from that type of experience and then relayed that into your professional career and into business?
Probably empathy, I think, and understanding for people that are in countries where it's a foreign language or in situations where they don't actually understand the industry or the terminology that people are talking about.
Yeah.
So just the ability to try and explain it to them and have a little bit of patience as far as that goes.
Yeah.
And the thought process that just because people aren't following the conversation doesn't mean they don't actually understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, somebody could have been, saying something about you and you'd been well aware what was going on, but, they thought they were being secret.
Exactly right, and body language and facial expressions give you away all the time, don't they?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah,
that's a great story.
It was a crazy time.
Yeah.
Great fun, crazy time, on a bus, which was a coach.
Yeah.
So on a coach where, we'd go down the road and you could only have the road was only 1.5 lanes wide.
Yeah.
So you'd have to stop if someone was coming the other direction. You might not see anyone for half a day.
Yeah.
But if someone was coming the other direction, you'd have to stop and whoever was going downhill would have to reverse so that the person coming uphill could pass them. With the view being, I formed the view that the reason why they didn't make the people reverse who were going uphill was if their brakes failed, they'd just career away down the hill. I mean, you're in the jungle for a lot of it, so it was really pretty cool.
So no guardrails and
just drop-offs.
So no fear of heights for you then?
No, not now, not really then.
Yeah,
heights haven't really sort of bothered me too much. But having said that, I'm don't like roller coasters. Not a real daredevil as far as that sort of stuff goes. But the edge of the mountains are right.
Well, you might have got it all out of your system on that bus trip. Well, that does sound pretty cool, though. So, mate, you weren't always, in the insurance broking and general insurance business. What was life like before, you became the managing director of Safeguard Insurance Brokers?
Yeah, well, I, my life story, I suppose I finished school in 88. Finished school on the Friday, started work on the Monday for a civil construction company.
Yeah.
And worked with them with a surveyor for 2 years, I reckon, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And then he, as what they used to call a chain man, which was one of the when you're 18, 19 years old, one of the great jobs because it had, certainly for me, had very low expectations apart from make sure you turn up on Monday and everything will be all right.
Yeah.
So it was easy. So, going around knocking in pegs and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then he resigned, and then I stayed with the same company and did a bit of labouring work with them, and then went to Whyalla, where the company had a contract, and worked up there for a few months. knocking down an old water tower up at BHP at the coke ovens.
Yeah.
And then we had a workplace accident, so 5 of us got burnt in a big steam blast.
Wow.
And that was life-changing really in a lot of ways. Came back down to Adelaide through the flying doctors, was on life support, that sort of stuff, so very traumatic time for everybody.
Yeah.
Took years to recover. Had to wear a face mask, so one of those pressure garments over the full face mask, like a balaclava with a zip on it.
Yeah.
But only for 12 hours a day, so I could wear that at night time.
Yeah.
When I slept, and then also pressure garments over arms and parts of my body and that sort of stuff where I had skin grafts.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of trouble with the face mask because of the fact it was a pressure garment.
Yeah.
And then did a lot of stuff to try and get me through to making sure that I didn't unzip it at night subconsciously when I was sleeping.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing a lot of hypnotherapy with my GP, who was accredited in hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
And that helped me. So that was very, very beneficial, very different for me because that was still 20, 21, 22, and I thought hypnotherapy was a bit of a joke until I actually did it.
Yeah.
Because all I sort of witnessed was what you see on TV, where people think they see naked people running around, but it's anything but. So from a relaxation technique, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So from there, I sort of decided that I didn't want to have anybody have control over me from that period on. Did some stuff with work cover and some presentations with work cover and that sort of stuff, and then got involved in a family business with doing insurance investigation work and security work and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Did that for a number of years, left in 2004.
Yeah.
And which was a pretty traumatic time or, emotional time when you leave a family business and people don't want you to leave, but you do because your life's gone in a different direction.
So it was with your family?
Yeah, it was with my family. So then by that stage I had 3 young children and, life had changed. So the work it used to be really good. It used to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of last minute chaos, last minute crisis sort of work and a lot of weekend work as well, and that sort of the novelty of that wears off when you have a young family. So I got out of that and then had 6 months off. Didn't know what I was going to do, and virtually needed 6 months to recover from almost being a workaholic to trying to unwind a little bit.
Yeah.
At the same time, the Athens Olympics were on, the 2004 Olympics were on. So I think I competed in about 20 events a day for Australia. So that was a lot of fun. And then also had, mates find out that you're home, so they'd pop around. Yeah. And Sal, my wife, was working at the time, so they'd pop around during the day.
Yeah.
And you'd have, a couple of beers with each one that came around. By the time she came home, I would have had 6 beers sort of every day. So novelty of that was wearing off pretty quick.
Yeah.
And, I was starting to look at getting back into business and buying a business. And my father-in-law came and saw us one day and said, who I've a good relationship with, and said that they had a partner in their business that was retiring and they wanted to get some younger people back into the business.
Yeah.
So I give it a shot of fresh blood, for argument's sake.
Yeah.
And so, we spoke about that for a while and then went down that path, and I worked at Safeguard for nearly a year.
Yep.
Just having a bit of a look at the business and what goes on. And bit the bullet and bought in.
Yeah, okay.
So and was very fortunate because at the time that I joined the business, there was a lot of new training coming into the industry and a lot of support from the insurers in relation to developing talent and that sort of gear. Yep. And I was the benefit of that in a big way.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I just want to circle back to the business that you're in with your family.
Yep.
And I guess the leaving of that business and the dynamics around that, family business or being in business with family can obviously be challenging. You've gone from one family business to another, but I probably just want to ask you about the frameworks and the relationship challenges around, I guess first of all leaving one and then joining another one.
Yeah, very difficult. very, very difficult to do, very difficult emotionally, very difficult, financially, just the whole process that you go through. Anyone that talks about, that tells you about how they partners leave businesses and that sort of stuff is a difficult process for people. So even harder, I believe, when it's family, because you've got all the emotion that goes with it as well. And there's also no separation. So it's not as if you go to the office, have an issue there, come home and different life and away you go. So very, very tough. We, probably didn't handle it very well and caused a lot of issues within the family for a number of years, which is regrettable by everybody, but that's, at the time, that's what goes on. And was difficult for people to be at the table to try and resolve the issues, because there was a lot of pain on both sides. So, and then joining the sort of with my father-in-law and that side of the business, I think just really sort of cut even deeper for my parents. And, it took a long time for it to sort itself out. It's good now. It's great now. But there was certainly some lost years there, that's for sure.
With your benefit of experience now, and I know you've got kids that are, sort of starting to think about, what next for them, finish school and they're off to uni or about to start jobs or whatever it might be. What are some of the learnings out of that for you now that you're in a family business and perhaps the teachings or that you can share regarding your experience for others?
My view with my own children as far as the business goes, and I would love for them to work in the business one day, is very much along the lines of they need to develop their own careers, go out, have their own skill set, come back into the business if that's what they wanted to do when they had a skill set that was needed and required and to contribute. So no different to any other employee from that side of things. And that there'd be a lot of structure, which we've got and which we certainly had when I moved into this business, a lot of structure around how the business works and how things flow. And just to make sure that the kids never feel like they're trapped. And not that I felt like I was trapped, but you do when you work in a family business in the event that you're sort of stuck because you don't want to cause the pain of leaving. So I've seen a few times, a few of those scenarios unfold where, particularly for children leaving their parents as far as business goes and going out to pursue their own, options and opportunities, that just the pain that's very untidy, that sort of ending, I suppose. And very emotional for everybody. And how important then is those communication structures around that? I guess call it, clear and transparent and trusting, empathetic dialogue that happens in that space. Looking forward, to be able to have those genuine conversations, if you like. Absolutely, and I think that it's also about making sure that, and this is not comparing one to the other, but it just what I've learned and the way I feel, just making sure that the business is a business. And, it's not just time where you share time together and work together, which is a great benefit of being in a family business. Fantastic when it works really well. But the business is a business. So if you want to leave and go and do something else, then you should be encouraged to go and do that. Because if you're not happy there, their life's too short to be unhappy where you're working, that's for sure. So making sure that there's proper structure and there's an expectation or a conversation around the fact, particularly with the children, that if you want to leave, it's okay. We'd prefer you to stay, but if you want to leave, then it's your life and it's your decisions, and off you go.
Cool. I just want to also circle back just to your accident. That was obviously a major trauma that you went through, and I can't help but you mentioned the Michael J. Fox book and draw some parallels between his experience then and your own experience going through that accident. From having been through that, what have you done, I guess, in terms of whether it be goals or focus or perspective or whatever it is, having such a traumatic accident that you've then taken with you on your personal and business journey following that?
A lot. You learn a lot from those. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about friends and family and that sort of thing in those scenarios, those situations. Just responsibility, absolute responsibility for what goes on. Everybody's got responsibility, and you think that you do, but until something goes wrong, you don't realise just how big the stakes are. just on normal day activities that you go about. So absolute responsibility for things that are happening and for the way you can impact what's going on as well. And your responsibility to other people. That was one of the big things as well. Just responsibility, empathy, and surrounding yourself with good people and listening to the advice that they give.
Yeah, cool. Mate, thanks for sharing. It's a great share. So, appreciate you putting that out there. In your business, dealing with general insurance and business insurance and other things like that, generally people come and see you when there's something happen. Is a traumatic event. Their business has burnt down, there's been a car accident, there's been something go on. How do you work your way through that dynamic? Generally most of your client interactions, I'm guessing when something like that's happened. So how do you manage to balance that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's certainly the side of the business I like best because it's the opportunity to help people.
Yeah.
We and a lot of it is around setting expectations on what's going to happen and helping them and guiding them through the process. It's very, very traumatic for a lot of people, very frustrating. Then the process can be frustrating for people as well because it's rarely as easy as what everybody thinks it's going to be dealing with insurance companies.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that side of helping them. To separate sort of the emotional angst that they're going through, particularly in large losses, is very difficult. But giving them some surety around and certainty around what's going to happen is very sort of relieving for the people generally. And then it's about expectations around time frame.
Yeah.
So and if people can understand the process and what's going to happen, and if you can get them to work closely with you, which many of our clients do, then things generally work out fairly well. The difficulty comes where there's underinsurance, so that they're going to suffer a financial loss as far as what goes on.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's more about the inconvenience, because it turns their life on their head. Everything works out all right in the end, but it turns their life on their head. But where there's financial loss, where there's going to be a shortfall as far as cover goes, that's where it gets difficult for them, because not only are they going through a really hard time emotionally but they're also going to end up out of pocket, and sometimes if it's can go wrong in a big way, and they suffer significant loss.
Yeah, and so effectively becomes a double whammy.
Absolutely, absolutely, and depression through underinsurance is a massive issue in Australia. Yeah, and because it's financial pressure that comes on, which is a trigger for it. Yeah. And unfortunately, so much of it is avoidable in a lot of ways too, just by getting the right advice. And one of the problems with insurance and with insurance claims is that you're trying to fix, or you're resolving stuff, or trying to correct decisions that were made 6 or 9 months ago. And it's a legal contract, you just can't. Yeah. Yeah.
And I suppose, then some of the learnings out of that is, probably these discussions for business owners from a technical perspective, constant reviews of their insurance on a regular basis with, understanding what their insured limits are and all those sort of things needs to be part of their governance process, really.
Absolutely, and getting them to take the time to do it. Yeah. Because insurance reviews aren't the most exciting sort of topic for most people, let alone business owners who are busy and going on. Ones that have certainly suffered a loss or have, one of the best things that can happen is that someone in their industry has a large loss, and so it doesn't affect them, but it makes them stop and think about what they're doing in their own business. So claims examples are a critical thing as far as educating and explaining to clients how their policy is going to respond and what sort of covers they'll have and what they need to think about. One of the and there's books been written in the industry about it won't happen to me, one of those sort of thought processes. Nobody wants to think about it. Yeah. But it happens every day.
Yeah. And, I think those case studies or those examples that you're just talking about, and I know, we've had conversations previously where major events of clients in a similar industry or, then has knock-on effects through the whole industry in terms of what that looks like. And I remember you telling me about the well-known Thomas Farms, Thomas Foods, fire at Murray Bridge, how that had a massive impact on premiums with clients with refrigeration and things like that.
Absolutely, and it's still very, very difficult for clients with refrigeration. Anyone with EPS, anyone with aluminium-clad panelling, all that sort of stuff. The property market is very, very difficult. And one of the key things, and every industry changes over time. So one of the key things that is happening with the insurance broking industry at the moment is in planning. In as far as clients building new premises, that sort of stuff can make a massive difference in relation to the sort of materials that are being used as far as their ongoing costs in relation to insurance and their ongoing ability to get insurance. So capacity and appetite are the two big issues in the industry at the moment. And, for other industries such as tourism or hard-to-place liability, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I guess just touching on that, the insurance industry itself has gone through a whole lot of change. How have you guys as a business managed to I guess, tackle that change? What things have you done to be able to pivot effectively to stay relevant, to continue to add value to your clients?
Yeah, it's certainly we're getting more information coming through from the insurers in a lot of ways. What we're finding is that they're good at sending through some information, some claims examples, that sort of thing. They're all going through restructures at the moment, so technology is rolling into the industry in a big way. That's in some ways that's a great thing because it speeds up the rate of processing and volume and that sort of stuff. The downside is that what we're seeing is that the insurers are cutting staff numbers and you're losing a lot of experienced people.
Right.
So getting deals done with insurers is getting more difficult from that side of it.
Yeah.
For what that means for us and for our clients is, we need longer lead times, but we're also seeing things like technology coming in and some of it's been only over the last 12 months or so with COVID, with web links, so you can film from site straight to an assessor on a desktop and fast track things along those sort of ways. So some of the improvements are terrific coming through. What you'll also find though is it opens up areas for cyber insurance and that sort of stuff. So the market is definitely shifting from what used to be your more traditional concepts around money and theft and that those sort of risks, to now everything is getting a lot more digital. And being able to explain that to clients and explain how the policies respond or don't respond, so that there's gaps in cover, because you've basically got traditional aged, industrial aged insurance policies trying to respond to the digital age, and there's gaps everywhere. So we're just working that through with clients is a difficult thing.
So I suppose the industry's lagging behind what's actually happening at the real business front end of everything that's going on, and that creates some challenges.
Absolutely, and the industry, to its credit, is trying to catch up, but some of the risks are unknown too. So, and of course, insurers or underwriters being pretty wary by nature, don't want to take that leap a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, who would have thought that, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, you'd be having hackers get into your emails and scamming bank details and things like that for suppliers and taking money in that form.
And we see a lot of it, and some of it is, you got to give credit to them, some of it is really, really good. It's a shame that they use their intelligence for nefarious activities rather than helping the world.
Using their skills for evil, not good.
Correct, but it's such a big business now. A lot of them have got help desks too. So you actually ring up these guys, and they've got a help desk to help you through the process of how you're going to resolve the issue and pay them the money, because that's what they're after.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Other obstacles that you've faced in your career?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we've all faced obstacles over time. Mine would definitely be the imposter syndrome, so which gets talked about a lot and is very common with a lot of people. The insurance industry is no different to many other industries, where people think that length of time you've been in the industry equates to skill set. And that's not is rarely the case. So, it's the old adage of you can have 20 years experience, or you can have 20 years of 1 year's experience, 20 times of 1 year's experience, really. So the imposter syndrome was a big one for me early. I've got through that now. But that was a big one for a long period of time. And that would be the biggest obstacle, I reckon, because that and, where I was fortunate was the amount of training that came in, and still is a lot of training in the industry. But that would have been the biggest the biggest obstacle I've faced, I believe.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I wish, like everybody, I wish I'd studied more at school. Listen to my parents.
Yeah, it's good advice for all the juniors out there.
Yeah, nobody listens though.
That's true. They'll make their own path.
Exactly right.
Fail fast.
Yeah.
Some of the goals that you've set for yourself that you're yet to achieve, mate?
Yeah, it would be, I'd still like to grow the business to a larger size than what it is. I think there's benefits in that for the business, for clients and for staff working in the business. So it sets a more defined career path for some people.
Yeah.
That's still my ongoing goal. I'd like to at some point scale back a little bit as far as the activities that I'm doing in the business, because I'm still, like so many other people, too hands-on in day-to-day activities that are going on. Part of that you need to in a professional services style business, but you get caught up in a lot of activity that you don't really need to be involved in.
Yeah.
So it's still just refining the processes.
Yeah.
And that's just an ongoing challenge.
Yeah.
So this year we've got new technology rolling through the business. That's one of the key focuses, and that will hopefully speed up. So take away some of those roles, which would be a great thing. But apart from that, personally, it's just making sure I spend time with the kids. Yeah. Kids and Sally. Yeah. So family time is always important. We I tend to think we do it pretty well. So it still just rolls along. But of course they get older and fly to the nest, don't they? And you've got to make sure you've got sort of common hobbies or interests with Sal, so that we keep doing things together.
Well, I mean, and look, I want to probably just touch on that. I think you make a really good point there. Family for entrepreneurial business owners is often the neglected area of their life. You spend all this time at work building this business, and a lot of the arguments that I've traditionally heard from business owners, well, I'm building it for the family, whereas the family just want to have time. I mean, how do you find that right balance, and what are some of the things that you do as a family that works, that helps keep that connectivity?
We'll generally eat tea together as a family, talk about the day, and away we go. Just making that time, being able to walk out of the office and go home to be home for tea, even if you go back and do some work from home, and technology lets you do that a lot now too. So it's it's a great improvement rather than sitting in the office to the wee hours of the morning. Yeah. So it's just making sure that from our point of view that we're doing it. Probably having 4 children helps, because you have to help out. Yeah. So you don't really have a choice, otherwise the whole thing falls in a heap. But what I've certainly found over my journey is that, if your home life starts falling apart, then you can virtually forget the business for a period of time, because it knocks everything out of kilter. So if you're balanced, you get a lot more done.
Yeah, so the importance of balance and I suppose being present.
Correct. Yeah. And we a few years ago started sharing a family calendar, so you could put events in and see what was going on, and that changed a lot of sort of the just the day-to-day angst, as far as people not knowing what you had on or what they had on, and that sort of stuff just took that away. So that gave it some real structure. Yeah. So it made it a lot easier.
That's cool. Do you have a routine where you at home where you talk about those things then, like that family calendar, what's coming up this week? Or,
So we'll talk about what's coming up for the week. And it just sort of rolls. But you'll also see it's an iCloud calendar, so it's a traditional sort of calendar where you'll see the invites coming through as well when somebody puts something in. Yeah. So you'll know what's going on. Yeah. And it's just being for me, it's just making sure that it's front of mind, that I'm involved and that you're actually present when you're with the children. Yeah. So, and I still remember someone saying, it's not, and I spend a lot of time with the kids, but it's not how much time you spend with them, but it's the quality of the time. Yeah, and that's so critical. Yeah. And fortunately now, as you go through, and as I've certainly gone through the journey, you just get, to me, just more and more structure around everything. Structure seems to make it all work. Yeah. So if you focus on that, then things fall into place. Everything, it's rarely perfect, isn't it, life? No, but structure helps. As soon as we lose our structure, whether that be at home or particularly at home, everything else goes pear-shaped.
Yeah. So, mate, tell me, how do you manage the transition from being at work to then being present at home? Is there a routine or something that you go through? How do you tackle it?
Yeah, it's interesting. The routine that I go through, and I didn't even realise it was a routine until I went through a training program on something, was I always got changed religiously. So very much back in those days anyway, would very much wear a suit to work. And as soon as I got home, I'd go straight into the bedroom and get changed into clothes I was going to wear at home that night, whether it be a trackie or jeans and a shirt and that sort of stuff. And it was almost symbolic of going through the process of leaving work and being home. And then that was it. So what I've certainly learned over time is that I can't do work and home together properly. Or you can't do either justice. So, you end up failing miserably because you get cranky because you want to be doing work and so you get cranky with the kids and then all that sort of thing. So for me, it's always been one or the other. You're either work or be home, one of the two.
And your trigger was going home and getting changed into civvies or casual clothes to then be present.
Absolutely, and it was just a change, and that would just represent a change of mindset.
That's cool. And I think the importance of routine. I mean, I went through a similar thing. My routine is as soon as I log my computer off and switch that off, a laptop and leave it at work, then my work day's done. So it's a similar thing, and you get present and get focused to be at home and be your best self there.
Correct, and one of the big traps now is also emails on phones. So the ability to be able to switch your email off on your iPhone, which is it's pretty simple because you just press a button and it's done. Yeah. It's simple to turn it back on, but I'm a shocker for checking my phone. So it also takes away that issue as well. Yeah.
No, I know. I mean, one of the things that I learned from a couple of my peers, and I think the family calendar, may have ripped that off from you a few years ago as well. But when we have a weekly family huddle over dinner, it always happens on a Monday night. What's coming up this week? What's going on? What are our goals for next week? Did we achieve them? Did we not achieve them? And just helps that transparency and communication.
Yeah, and everything flows off the back of that.
Yeah.
And I find, I'm very fortunate because Sally's fantastic with the kids and talks to them very well. That they're just happy to communicate, and that's one of the big keys, isn't it, as far as what's going on? Yeah,
I want to just talk about your goals and your family goals and the business, about growing some of this stuff. Now you're in business with your brother-in-law, so Sal's brother Brad,
correct,
and his wife Michelle. How do you guys go about lining these two things up? There's two families, different objectives, different stages of life slightly, how do you manage the juggle of those two things?
It's always been a bit of a bugbear to me. So I think we can do it a lot better. We generally do it through yourself and through Christian and Attitude. So trying to line up the two families as far as what we're doing in our lives, and we both live different lives, and is good, but it's not often easy too, as far as what the goals and directions are. We're both on a similar sort of trajectory. I think we just got to talk about it more. That's more of the issue between the two. Well, not the issue, but that's more of the thing between it is communicating about it in some sort of fashion.
Yeah.
And we're probably also coming through a period where in your 40s it's just, life rolls on.
Yeah.
Now I'm certainly about to turn 50 and Brad will next year. With the focus changes a little bit too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you're sort of 2/3 of the way through your career in a lot of ways. So you got to start thinking about what you're actually doing, and you get time. You start to come up for air because the kids are starting to drive, and all that sort of time. Your time commitment with them falls away a little bit.
Yeah.
So it gives you a bit more time to spend on yourselves.
Yeah.
Which is important.
Good. So you're starting to think about how you get out.
Yeah.
Too at the same time as.
Correct, and how you get out, what it looks like when you get out. What you need to do to get there, and even though it's a long way off, we all know it rolls on. Next few years roll past pretty quickly, don't they?
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point there. How important it is to have, whether it be in business with family member or with other business partners, that those goals line up so that you're clear in the business that you're heading in the same direction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you have a life motto?
Be happy.
Be happy.
Be happy. Live.
Yeah.
Enjoy your life. Be thankful for what you've got and who you are. So be grateful, I suppose.
Yeah.
But really just be happy is more my life motto than anything else, because certainly from my work experience and accident and that sort of stuff, it changes quickly. So you don't get your time back again, that's for sure.
Cool. Thank you, mate. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Cheers.
I'm Daniel Bullock, the Managing Director of Safeguard Insurance Brokers. Thanks for joining us on The Little Black Book.